As of September 2024, Kamala Harris's positions in the presidential election debates would likely cover a range of issues based on her previous political career and campaign platform. Here's a detailed exploration of the key points she might emphasize. 1. Economic policy, job creation and economic growth. Kamala Harris would likely emphasize her administration's efforts to stimulate job creation and economic growth, particularly through infrastructure investments and green energy projects. She might highlight successes in expanding job opportunities in high-tech and sustainable industries and discuss initiatives aimed at supporting small businesses and startups. Tax reform. Harris may advocate for a progressive tax system that increases taxes on the wealthiest individuals and corporations while providing relief for middle and lower-income families. This could include revisiting tax cuts that benefit the wealthy and using the revenue to fund social programs and reduce the deficit. Addressing income inequality. She might propose policies to address economic disparities, such as increasing the minimum wage, expanding paid family leave, and implementing targeted programs to support marginalized communities. Harris would likely emphasize her commitment to reducing income inequality through both tax policy and direct support programs. #2. Healthcare, expanding access. Kamala Harris would likely advocate for expanding access to healthcare through improvements to the Affordable Care Act, ACA. This could include increasing subsidies, expanding eligibility, and lowering prescription drug prices. She might emphasize the need to make healthcare more affordable and accessible for all Americans. Public option. Harris has previously supported the introduction of a public option as a way to provide more affordable healthcare choices alongside private insurance. This would involve creating a government-run insurance plan that competes with private insurers, aiming to lower costs and increase competition. Medicare for all. While she has supported Medicare for all in the past, Harris might balance this with a more pragmatic approach, proposing a phased implementation or a hybrid model that includes both Medicare expansion and a public option, depending on political feasibility and the current healthcare landscape. #3. Climate change and environment, Green New Deal. Harris would likely support ambitious climate action plans similar to the Green New Deal, which includes investing in renewable energy, reducing carbon emissions, and creating green jobs. She might focus on the economic benefits of transitioning to a clean energy economy and the importance of addressing climate change as an urgent priority. International climate agreements. She would emphasize rejoining and strengthening international climate agreements, such as the Paris Agreement. Harris might discuss efforts to work with other nations to meet global climate goals and enhance the United States' leadership role in international climate action. Environmental justice. Harris could highlight the need for policies that address environmental justice, ensuring that marginalized and vulnerable communities receive support and protection from the impacts of climate change and environmental degradation. #4. Foreign policy, diplomacy and alliances. Kamala Harris would likely focus on rebuilding and strengthening alliances with traditional U.S. allies, emphasizing the importance of diplomacy and multilateralism in addressing global challenges. She might discuss efforts to restore relationships with NATO and other international partners. Trade policies. Harris might propose revisiting trade policies to ensure they are fair and beneficial for American workers. This could include negotiating trade agreements that address labor standards and environmental concerns while protecting American industries from unfair competition. National security. She would likely discuss her approach to national security, including strengthening counter-terrorism efforts and modernizing the military. Harris might also focus on cybersecurity and protecting U.S. interests from emerging global threats. #5. Social issues, criminal justice reform. Kamala Harris would probably emphasize her commitment to criminal justice reform, including measures to address police misconduct, end mass incarceration, and support rehabilitation and re-entry programs. She might highlight her background as a prosecutor and her efforts to advance reforms in California. Civil rights. She would likely advocate for policies that promote civil rights and social justice, including measures to address systemic racism, support voting rights, and ensure equal opportunities for all Americans. Harris might highlight her work on legislation aimed at combating discrimination and promoting equity. Immigration reform. Harris would probably support comprehensive immigration reform, including pathways to citizenship for undocumented immigrants, protections for DACA recipients, and measures to improve border security while ensuring humane treatment of migrants. #6. National security, counterterrorism. Harris would likely discuss her approach to counterterrorism, focusing on strategies to prevent domestic and international threats. This could include enhancing intelligence capabilities and working with international partners to combat terrorism. Homeland security. She might emphasize the need to strengthen homeland security measures, including improving border security and addressing emerging threats such as cyber attacks. Harris could advocate for modernizing security infrastructure and policies to protect American interests. Defense spending. Harris might discuss her stance on defense spending, balancing the need for a strong military with fiscal responsibility. She could advocate for investments in defense technology while ensuring that military spending is efficient and aligned with national security priorities. #7. Education, funding for schools. Kamala Harris would likely focus on increasing funding for public schools, particularly in underserved communities. She might propose measures to improve educational resources, support teachers, and ensure that all students have access to quality education. Student loan relief. Harris would probably advocate for policies aimed at reducing student loan debt, such as expanding loan forgiveness programs, reducing interest rates, and making higher education more affordable through increased financial aid. Early childhood education. She might emphasize the importance of investing in early childhood education and supporting programs that provide high-quality preschool opportunities for all children, aiming to improve educational outcomes from an early age. Kamala Harris's positions in the debate would reflect her campaign's priorities and her vision for addressing key issues facing the country. Her platform would likely highlight her commitment to progressive policies, social justice, and strengthening both domestic and international efforts to advance American interests.
During the 2024 presidential debate, Donald Trump delivered a forceful and assertive speech that underscored his position on key issues and his vision for the future of America. He began by emphasizing his achievements during his previous term, highlighting a strong economy, job creation, and deregulation efforts that he claimed led to significant economic growth. Trump contrasted his administration's record with the current administration's performance, arguing that his policies had been more effective in boosting prosperity and security. He addressed the topic of immigration, advocating for stricter border controls and a tougher stance on illegal immigration. Trump stressed the importance of building a secure border wall and enforcing immigration laws to protect American jobs and national security. He portrayed his approach as necessary to prevent crime and maintain order. On foreign policy, Trump reiterated his commitment to a strong national defense and criticized current policies he described as weakening America's position on the global stage. He discussed his strategy of engaging with adversaries from a position of strength and his approach to trade deals, which he claimed would protect American industries and workers from unfair competition. Trump also tackled domestic issues, including healthcare, where he argued against the expansion of government-run programs and promoted his vision of a more market-driven system. He spoke about his plans to reduce taxes and cut government spending as means to stimulate economic growth and reduce the national debt. Throughout the debate, Trump's rhetoric was combative, and he frequently criticized his opponent's policies and record. He emphasized his outsider status, positioning himself as a fighter against the establishment and a champion of the average American. His speech was characterized by a focus on his past accomplishments and a promise to restore what he portrayed as the country's lost greatness. In the 2024 presidential debate, Donald Trump delivered a robust and detailed address, framing his campaign around his previous administration's accomplishments and his vision for future governance. His speech began with a confident recap of the economic successes he attributed to his first term. Trump boasted about the substantial job growth, the reduction in unemployment rates, and the record highs in stock market indices that occurred under his watch. He argued that his administration's tax cuts and deregulation policies had spurred economic growth and revitalized industries, contrasting these outcomes with what he portrayed as the current administration's economic mismanagement, which he claimed had led to inflation and economic stagnation. Turning to immigration, Trump presented a strong stance on border security. He reiterated his commitment to completing the border wall, framing it as essential for national security and the prevention of illegal immigration. Trump criticized the current administration's handling of immigration, arguing that lax policies had led to increased crime and job competition for American workers. He called for enhanced immigration enforcement, stricter vetting processes, and a reevaluation of asylum policies, asserting that his approach would restore law and order while safeguarding American jobs. On foreign policy, Trump highlighted his administration's achievements in strengthening military alliances and countering adversarial nations. He took credit for negotiating trade deals that he claimed were more favorable to American interests, particularly with China and other major trading partners. Trump positioned himself as a defender of American sovereignty against international pressures and criticized the current administration's foreign policies, which he argued had undermined U.S. influence and left the country vulnerable to global challenges. When discussing healthcare, Trump reiterated his opposition to government-run healthcare systems, arguing that such approaches would lead to inefficiencies and increased costs. He advocated for a healthcare system that prioritized market competition and patient choice, suggesting that his plans would improve the quality of care while controlling costs. He criticized the current administration's efforts to expand government healthcare programs, labeling them as misguided and financially unsustainable. Trump's speech also touched on energy policy, where he underscored his support for domestic energy production, including oil and natural gas. He argued that energy independence was crucial for national security and economic stability and criticized policies he deemed detrimental to the energy sector, including restrictive regulations and environmental mandates that he claimed stifled growth and increased energy costs. In addressing issues of crime and law enforcement, Trump emphasized his support for police and his commitment to reducing crime rates through stronger law enforcement measures. He argued that his administration's support for the police and focus on cracking down on violent crime had led to safer communities, contrasting this with what he described as the current administration's insufficient support for law enforcement and rising crime rates. Throughout the debate, Trump's rhetoric was assertive and combative. He frequently attacked his opponents, questioning their competence and effectiveness while positioning himself as the only candidate capable of reversing what he portrayed as the current administration's failures. His speech was designed to evoke a sense of urgency and highlight his vision of a return to what he characterized as America's former greatness, promising a decisive and transformative leadership that would address both domestic and international challenges. The 2024 presidential debate showcased contrasting styles and priorities between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, each presenting their visions and policies while addressing key issues. Here is a detailed analysis of their performances and the areas where their speeches were perceived as lacking. Donald Trump *. 1. Economic achievements. Trump emphasized his previous administration's economic successes, including job growth and stock market performance. However, he did not fully address the current economic challenges, such as rising inflation and income inequality, which some critics felt needed more detailed solutions. 2. Immigration policy. Trump advocated for stronger border security and stricter immigration controls, focusing on the completion of the border wall and enhanced enforcement. Critics argued that his approach lacked nuance in addressing the humanitarian aspects of immigration and did not provide a clear plan for managing undocumented immigrants already in the country. 3. Foreign policy. Trump highlighted his achievements in trade deals and military strength. However, his discussion often lacked depth on how he would handle ongoing international conflicts or the evolving geopolitical landscape, leaving some voters wanting more specifics on his future foreign policy strategy. 4. Healthcare. Trump reiterated his opposition to government-run healthcare and promoted a market-driven approach. His speech was criticized for not offering a comprehensive plan for replacing or improving the existing healthcare system, particularly in addressing coverage for pre-existing conditions and expanding access to care. 5. Energy policy. He supported domestic energy production, including fossil fuels, but did not address the growing concerns about climate change and renewable energy. Critics felt his energy policy lacked a forward-looking approach on transitioning to sustainable energy sources. 6. Law and order. Trump emphasized support for law enforcement and reducing crime rates. However, his speech was seen as lacking a balanced approach that also addressed systemic issues in the criminal justice system and the need for police reform. Kamala Harris *. 1. Domestic policy. Harris focused on the achievements and plans of the current administration, including infrastructure investments and social programs. Some felt that her speech could have provided a clearer vision on how these initiatives would address ongoing economic disparities and improve middle-class economic security. 2. Healthcare. Harris advocated for expanding government healthcare programs and improving access. Her speech was seen as lacking in details about how she would address criticisms of government-run healthcare systems and the practicalities of implementing such policies on a national scale. 3. Immigration. Harris discussed a more compassionate approach to immigration, emphasizing pathways to citizenship and reform. Critics argued that her proposals lacked specifics on how to handle the immediate challenges of border security and the backlog of immigration cases. 4. Foreign policy. Harris highlighted a commitment to strengthening alliances and addressing global issues collaboratively. However, her speech was perceived as lacking in concrete strategies for dealing with specific international crises and assertively countering adversaries. 5. Climate change. Harris supported aggressive action on climate change and renewable energy. While her vision was forward-looking, critics felt that her speech did not fully address the economic impact of transitioning to green energy and how to balance environmental goals with economic interests. 6. Law and order. Harris spoke about criminal justice reform and supporting community-based policing. Her approach was seen as lacking detailed plans for addressing the complexities of systemic issues and ensuring effective implementation of proposed reforms. In summary, the debate highlighted both candidates' strengths and areas where their proposals were perceived as lacking depth or specificity. Trump's performance was noted for its assertive rhetoric and focus on past accomplishments, while Harris's speech was recognized for its emphasis on current administration policies and progressive reforms. Both candidates faced critiques on how well they addressed the practical challenges and provided comprehensive solutions to the pressing issues facing the country.